Put down that camera and strap in. It's time for a new episode of Talk Chat Live. Get ready for 60 minutes of wall-to-wall photography, including photo news, tips, and your photography questions in real time, with answers from your host, Olympus visionary Joe Edelman.
Hey, that's me. How's everybody doing? Thanks for joining me for another live episode of Talk Chat. I'm your host, Joe Edelman, and as always, my mission is to help photographers like you to develop a solid understanding of the hows and whys behind great photography. Before we get going, gang, please take a second, just a second, and share. Let your photography friends know that we are streaming live on YouTube right now. You can click that share button like right down there, okay? Or you can go ahead and use the link, and I'll put it in the chat window for you right now, tog.chat/live. There you go. And of course, we've got people tuning in here from all over the world, which is amazing. I've got Steve in Michigan. I've got James up the road in Milford, Pennsylvania. I've got Darklink in El Paso. Nick is here from Maryland. Eric in San Antonio. Georgetown, Indiana. Vienna in Europe. South of France. Even northern New Jersey. Watford in the UK. The Netherlands and Victoria, British Columbia. That's awesome. Thank you so much. I love the fact that we can bring people together from all over the world and talk about photography. So please, if you haven't, check in, say hi, let me know you're here, let me know where you're from. It's awesome to see that. And of course, start posting those questions. I got a few questions queued up, but I've got plenty of time, and I will do my darndest to answer all of your questions in the next 90 minutes. All right, gang, so a couple of things. Number one, you'll see the TV made it here to the new studio now. So I've got that back in the background and also using it for some portrait backgrounds as you see me show off on social media. There's a video coming out about that shortly. I just wanted to give you guys a couple reminders. I've got some traveling coming up and hopefully opportunities to meet a lot of you. So let me just switch my screen over here. At the end of this month, the 26th, 27th of July, I'm gonna be in Holland, Michigan at Hope College for the Southwest Michigan Camera Club Council. I'll be presenting there on Friday the 26th, Saturday the 27th, and we'll be doing two classes, a creativity class, a fashion portraiture class, and on the Friday night they have a thing called Photo Frenzy, which is like a big shootout. So it's just kind of a fun social time, but we'll be doing some really cool stuff with fashion portraiture, and you will have the opportunity to shoot. And then on October 10th, I'm going to be down in Austin, Texas at Precision Camera. I had the opportunity to speak there last December, and I'm really excited about going back because it's a two-day event, actually a three-day event for Olympus. On Friday the 9th, my fellow Olympus visionary Tracy McGlosky will be there and will be presenting. And on Saturday the 10th, I'll be doing a presentation at the store on fashion portraiture, but then Saturday evening, the 10th, for 3 hours, we're gonna do an event on the rooftop swimming pool of the Hotel Indigo in downtown Austin, Texas. And it'll be all about shooting in natural light. None of that, let's be zombies and overpower the sun stuff. I'm gonna teach you how to find great backgrounds easily and how to work with whatever light you are given to be able to create great images. We're gonna have some models you'll be able to shoot. That's gonna be a lot of fun. And then after that in September, I'm out in Berkeley, California for a weekend. So you can get all of this information. Please make sure that you are checking out my travel schedule and my speaking schedule. But I did wanna point out, I put the link in the chat window there for you. I did wanna point out two big events that are coming up in the near future. A lot of people have been asking me for a while, hey Joe, are you gonna do workshops, especially now that you've got the studio outside the house? And the fact is, I am. So the first one is coming up September 21st and 22nd. So this is a whole weekend, 2 days with me. Small group, 7 students, that's it. So we have a lot of room, a lot of opportunity for everybody to shoot. And it is all about shooting portraits and really mastering studio lighting. That is the focus. So I put the link in the chat window there for you guys to check that one out. And then in October, if you want to learn how to do the crazy fashion portraits that I do, this one's a really, really fun one. I'm not gonna lie, it's a fun one for me to teach, and I think it's a fun one for people to attend because this also, 2 days, 7 students max. We're gonna have makeup artists in here doing really crazy creative stuff. We're gonna have a couple of models, but here's the cool part. This is a portfolio building workshop, meaning you're going to go home with images that do not look like everyone else's. The images that you create here will be yours. In fact, when you're creating, I will be your mentor and assistant. We will work in groups as teams to be able to build these images, but each photographer will be working with their own creative ideas based on the models and the props and the accessories we have, so that everybody goes home with something different. So please check those out. The links are in there. They're coming up. We still got a few spots left in each one, so I do hope to see you guys. It's going to be a really fun time. I'm excited to be able to get back into doing workshops because I have the space now, and in the fall, it's just going to be a great time to do it here. We might even be able to do some outdoor location stuff because it won't be too hot. So should be a good time to be had by all. All right, so let's dive in. I've got questions, and keep those questions coming. We've got plenty of time here, okay? So I want to start out with a couple that came into my Facebook group, and then we'll move into the ones that you guys have here in the chat window. So the first one I've got, this came from Steve Wilking. And Steve, this is one of those questions I hate, but let's tackle it, right? He was out shooting with a friend for 8 hours the other day. They got into a disagreement on technique. So let me just stop there and say that, in my opinion, that is probably one of the worst things in the world to get into a disagreement on. Right below the disagreeing on whose camera is better argument, right? But his friend likes to shoot ETTL. He likes to shoot ETTR. Now, a lot of you may not know what ETTL and ETTR is, and I'm not going to lie to you. I really hope it doesn't become a thing. You ready? So ETTL is exposed to the left, based on histogram. ETTR, exposed to the right, okay? Now, Steve goes on to say, I know that exposure is a matter of personal taste. Yes, indeed. There is no such thing as correct exposure, unless we're shooting artwork, reproducing scientific things, etc. Everything else is completely and entirely subjective. So let's be clear there. His question is, if one does post-processing, does an ETTR, exposed to the right, produce a better image, meaning less noise or grain? And that's because you're not pulling everything out of the shadows, you're leaving shadow detail in the image, okay? Provided that it's within your dynamic range and at appropriate settings like your base ISO. So keeping within your dynamic range, and of course working at base ISO, you're maximizing the image quality of your sensor. Remember, all of your camera sensors, doesn't matter what brand you're using, technically they are only one ISO. They are designed and built at a set ISO. All of the other ISOs that you use are software interpolation. They're interpretations of the various sensitivities, but all with a base ISO. The reason he asked the question is he wants to produce the best IQ image quality possible so that he can use the exposure techniques while factoring in his personal flavor for the image. So Steve, first of all, I want to congratulate you for using as many possible uncommon acronyms as you could possibly find there, okay? So let me start with the question that will actually get a lot of the people that do, because believe me, this is something that people will debate for hours. This is like, should you or shouldn't use high-speed sync? This is like, should you or shouldn't you use back button focus? Should you or shouldn't you use focus and recompose? You know, it's all that stuff that, honestly, it makes my head explode. So let me start, Steve, by giving you this reassurance. Never in the last 19 years of digital photography, until today, have I actually considered, do I or should I expose to the right or expose to the left? Just haven't, okay? That is not a part of my thought process on a daily basis when I'm shooting. My thought process, but now, full disclosure, let me give you guys a reminder. I'm a studio shooter primarily. But even when I'm outdoors, on location, I promise you, I am not thinking ETTL, ETTR, no. And the problem, Steve, with, and I apologize, guys, I'm a little bit all over the place here because there's a bunch of things I want to make sure that I really get across about this, okay? The problem with one or the other, there is no one or the other in photography. There is no right or wrong. There is no, I prefer to do it this way, so I'll always do it this way. Because, honestly, guys, there's no one technique. ETTR has its benefits and its cons. ETTL has its benefits and its cons. And generally, what happens is neither one of them becomes a problem until somebody pushes them to the limits of your camera's capability. So, right out of the box, I'm not a big fan of, I prefer this, I do it this way. I mean, yeah, we all develop habits and routines, and there are things that we will do rather consistently, but I do prefer to look at situations as needed, period, okay? So, you know, Steve added here, I see the comment just came up, he says, well, he was more so thinking about grain and noise. He doesn't want to lose the highlights nor the shadows. So first of all, understand that a picture where you're not losing, like, you know, the big example, Steve, is, you know, like a sky blowing out, right? Well, if you get everything so that it has detail, you're also creating a situation where the image is potentially very flat. I'm not into HDR, I'm not into that kind of stuff. And I know that's an extreme example, but where does it say you can't have a sky blowout or a highlight blowout? Or for that matter, where does it say that you can't have a shadow go dark or black? Do I always want all my shadows black? No, of course not. Do I always want all my highlights white and completely gone and blown out? Of course not. But at the same time, if I'm working in an extreme lighting situation, in other words, it's something where my eyes can see this is an extreme lighting situation. Why do I want to take that extreme lighting situation and flatten it so that it looks completely unnatural and completely unreal? Because when you do that, when you flatten it down so that you've got detail everywhere, you're also making it look unnatural to the human brain. So, hey, there's my man Manny, and I know Manny will weigh in on this one. Go for it, Manny. Tell them what your preference is, because you've done a video about it, okay? In fact, Manny, if you want to share your video about why you like to underexpose, put the link in there. I'll make sure to prove it so that people can see it. You know, again, people are going to have habits. They're going to have routines. The only thing that you're going to hear me like, no, it's not about what's better. It's more of a, you know, what habitually is going to get you the results that you want. So in Manny's video, and it's been a while since I've seen that video, but in Manny's video, he had a situation where he was photographing a girl under the elevated train in Chicago. So a lot of shade and really varying degrees of shade, okay? So just, you know, if he would have cut the sky out of the shots completely, and I think he had another one where there were like trees or that in the background and then open sky, but that stuff with the L, if he would have like cut the sky out completely, he still would have had to really be using the dynamic range of his camera, because there was a lot going on in terms of lights and darks and that kind of stuff. But then adding the sky, it gets even more extreme yet. So he talked about the idea of underexposing everything so that he is able to pull that detail out. Now, depending on the camera that you're working with, depending on that camera's dynamic range, depending on the overall sensor quality of that camera, depending upon the image software in that camera, right? So you notice I'm not picking any brands here because there's so many variables. Depending on all those things, that will work or it won't work. Now, the only place that I would differ potentially from Manny and say, Manny, you're driving and you're not going to pull over and post the link. No, I'm kidding, man. It's all right. So, so the only place where I would potentially differ with Manny in terms of the way I would approach it, I would be careful, and this is kind of what I've been saying to you here, Steve. I would be careful about kind of making it a habit, making it a routine. It's important that you're looking at each scene individually and understanding how am I going to get the best potential image out of this? But to ask a studio guy about studio work, there's no reason to be doing that in a studio. Like, if you're doing that in the studio, you're doing weird stuff, right? You're just not setting your lights properly. You're just making your life difficult. But yeah, outside in natural lighting, it's all about preferences. Again, for me, and this is where Manny and I do differ, and different photographers differ, but it's not a right or wrong. Guys, that's the biggest thing. Like, it's not right or wrong. It's about style. It's about taste. It's about preference, right? I want to see, if it's a scene that's got a lot of range, I want to see that range most of the time. Now, is that to say that I'm never going to go ahead and underexpose to preserve the highlights and then pull the shadows out? Yeah, I may. That's certainly a possibility. Never is a bad word, right? But honestly, Steve, I think really where this question and your conversation with your friend went south is the whole idea about you disagreed over what's better, right? It's going to depend on your cameras. It's going to depend on your processing techniques, your shooting styles, what you're shooting, what the situation is. And it's absolutely not a one-size-fits-all. And indeed, as Manny chimed in, you've got to know what your camera's capable of. Because I will tell you this, and actually Manny may disagree from his experience, but from my experience, I have no problem underexposing and relying on dynamic range to pull detail out in a shot. I've done that in situations with Sony, with Nikon, with Olympus, where there's just no light, but I needed a faster shutter speed. So I've gone ahead and I've underexposed, knowing that I've got a decent amount of dynamic range. But I'll tell you honestly, and I don't care what the brand is, you get these cameras now that are advertising, anywhere from 12 to 15 stops of dynamic range. I'm not going to rely on a 15 stop dynamic range difference and think that I'm going to pull 15 stops out of it without picking up noise, without sacrificing some image quality. So when I say I'll rely on the dynamic range in the camera and I'll go ahead and underexpose, maybe 2 or 3 stops. For me, that's my comfort level. And that's not an Olympus thing, that's a digital photography thing, period. Could the technology take us beyond that down the road? I'm sure at some point it will, because of how much sensors are improving. And when I say improving, again, I don't mean more pixels, bigger size, I just mean improving. The processing software is getting better, the image recording capabilities of the sensors is getting better at all sizes, right? So yeah, I mean, honestly, Steve, where I struggle with questions like this, and Steve, I appreciate all of your support, but I gotta be straight with you. I struggle with questions like this because this is exactly the crap that I did not get into photography for. Like, who cares? As long as you understand what the two options are, and as long as you understand the pros and the cons of both, what does it matter what the next guy's doing? Like, what's it matter, right? If the next guy is doing it and it's working for him one way, but you're doing it a different way and it's working for you another way, who cares? See, I didn't buy a camera for that stuff. I don't care about that stuff, and I get it. I'd have more people watching my videos if I dig into all that crap. But I'd much rather take pictures. I'm interested. Remember, for me, guys, photography is access to people. That's what I do. Period. So, see ya. I mean, I tell you honestly, Steve, call it a wash, walk away, enjoy taking pictures. Right? That's what I would do. Okay. All right. Next one I have here from, whoops, I'm clicking the wrong doggone button. Let's try that again. From John Cumber. What are your thoughts on qualifications / certificates and diplomas? Actually, we talked about this last week, John, so I'll give you kind of the abbreviated answer. He says, I often hear people say they won't get you work. You hear me say that. For me, it was the learning journey, and he goes on to say, for me, it was the learning journey and connecting with people far more knowledgeable than himself. He says, I think it shows that you have taken photography seriously, and it shows commitment. I mean, who is to say, he goes on to say, that putting your qualifications in your website isn't going to influence someone's decision to hire you? And then he says, me, Joe, is a great example of how successful somebody's self-talk can be. So he knows it's not essential, but he does feel that it's ultimately about learning. His qualifications are in wildlife and nature photography, so he says, now he is my teacher mentor. Well, thank you, John. I appreciate that last piece. So the short answer, John, is I don't feel that they are essential. I don't feel that they are important to making a living. I do know for a fact that many people, and it's just like college, I hate to say it, but many people that come out of school or go through a certificate or diploma program couldn't shoot the side of a barn if they were standing in front of it. They may know everything about ETTR and ETTL, but they can't solve a problem and be creative for squat, period. I'm not trying to be a jerk, but that's the reality of it, right? So I can say this, you do make a point, John. Is there the potential subliminal suggestion to a potential client that the idea that so-and-so has a degree in something means that, hey, I like the fact that they're degreed? There is that potential, absolutely. I'm not going to deny that. But I can tell you for a fact, never in my career has a potential client asked me about my education or background, period. I've had clients, i.e. they already hired me and were just shooting the breeze, ask me about my background. And I've not had a single one of them say, oh, I'm not hiring you again. Done. So I think the real key, John, with all that kind of stuff is, and you do mention it, it's not essential, but you do feel it's about learning. Everybody learns in a different way. I mean, you could spend a lot of money to go to college. And believe me, my wife's a college professor. A lot of kids walk off the stage with that diploma every year, and their parents have spent an insane amount of money, or they are in debt for an insane amount of money. And they don't know squat. They do not have the skills or the knowledge or the ability to go out and be productive and get a job in their chosen field. Schools don't teach you. Let's be very clear. Going to school does not guarantee that you are going to learn anything. I hate to say it, guys, it's no different than watching a YouTube video. There's no guarantee that you're going to learn anything. Going to school puts you in an environment and gives you an opportunity to learn. And a good school is going to give you a good structured program with which to learn from. But it is your choice and your hard work and effort that will determine whether or not you actually learn. So, let's be clear about what school's really all about. Grade school we have to go to. College is a choice, and college is only going to benefit you. Let's face it, gang. It's because, at least in the United States, I can't speak for the rest of the world, but here in the United States, college has become an extension of grade school. You just automatically go to college. So the real benefit in the United States to college is it's 4 more years for a young adult to mature and have more experiences and hopefully learn more about people of different races and sexes and preferences and all those things to make them a better, more well-rounded person. But college isn't guaranteeing anything. And college isn't necessarily teaching you anything. It's up to you to do the learning. And gang, you hear me say it all the time when people give me lazy questions. Learning is hard work. It requires effort. And John, you don't need a degree or certificate to do that. And certainly your clients aren't going to know whether you did that or not, right? So, next question, John Edward Calvino. When a potential client sends you an email asking for pricing information, I usually give them a call. Yet, what would be the best approach to take if the person sent an email without the phone number and they ask you to email them a quote? Gotta love those, right? The tire kickers, we all get them, okay? His question says, should I still push to get a phone number or reply by email? Both. Now, what I mean by that, John Edward, is you're not gonna send an email back and say, hey, give me your phone number and I'll call you. Because they're not gonna give you the phone number. That person's just they're gonna disappear, right? So, given that you are still going to be optimistic that there is a potential sale to be made, and given that you know you need to get that person on the phone and have a conversation, right? You're going to respond, and you're going to say, very simple, I would love to give you a quote. I have some more questions for you so that I know that I'm not going to overcharge you. Here's my phone number, or if you would like to share your phone number, please, when is a good time for you to chat? Or even be a little bit more forward and say, let's say that email comes in at 1 o'clock on a Monday. So assume that maybe 1 o'clock's a good time for them. So say, would it be possible for you to talk tomorrow at 1? You can call my number or tell me your number and I can call you. So you basically present it in a way that you're looking out for them. You want to make sure that you get more information so that you can give them a price that is fair and appropriate for the work that they need done. So absolutely, get into the phone, super, super important. Business is done, we're not selling books here or music downloads, right? Business is done between two people. And when you photograph that person, you're going to have to interact with them. So do understand that a big part of their buying decision and a big part of your job in completing the photographs is being able to talk to them, have a conversation with them, understand each other. So yes, you want to get them on the phone as soon as possible. So you're not going to basically say, no, I need your phone number, but you are going to say, hey, I'd love to give you a quote, but I've got some questions because I want to make sure that I don't overcharge you, and I want to make sure that I completely understand exactly what you're looking for. When can we talk? That's how I would approach that, Jean Edward. Okay? All right. Next. Whoops. I'm all over the wrong button tonight. Here we go. This one's from Linda Gardner. A couple of weeks ago, you mentioned that you were having issues with one of your gear bags and asked us what we use. I did ask for a little poll, and she wrote, you said that you'd circle back with this. Did you update us, or did she just miss it? I forgot. So, here's the deal. This is going to make sure that this company never sponsors me. So the history behind this question that I asked you guys, for years, well, a couple of years, okay, I have been using a think tank bag. So here, I'm going to take Linda's question off the screen just so you can see. This is the Urban Approach 15. I love this bag. In this bag, I have 2 camera bodies. I've got 5 lenses in here, spare cables, all kind of stuff. It also holds a laptop and a tablet. In fact, my buddy who's listening, Manny Ortiz, uses the same bag. I know, actually, there's a few people that are here tonight that I know use that same bag. I love it. I own 3 other think tank bags. If you see my social media posts, if you saw my video about traveling with camera equipment, you know that I'm a big think tank fan. They don't sponsor me. I paid for every single one, still paying off, the whole bit. They're expensive, right? But they're good bags. So my beef with this bag is, and you're gonna laugh at me, but I'm really serious. I wish it was like 1 inch bigger all the way around. Just 1 inch. 1 inch bigger all the way around would be amazing for me. Keep in mind, I travel a lot. I'm flying around the country, and I've got like cases like, whoops, how do I get to it? That one or that one that I'm traveling with the studio gear, and then I have a suitcase, for my personal belongings, and props are usually in the suitcase, and then I have the camera bag, right? So I wind up stuffing this bag senseless to the point that it's bulging like crazy. And that also means that I'm putting certain things at risk of damage by doing so. So I've been on the lookout for a bag that is indeed slightly larger, but still easy to use. One of the things that is important to me, so now remember, gang, bags, it's like women with purses. I will never make fun of a woman and her purses. Bags are very personal. They've got to have the right zippers, the right pockets, the right things. What works for me doesn't work for you, okay? So I finally found a bag from Tenba, which I thought was an awesome bag. And I purchased the bag. So first of all, let me switch my screen over here. I just want to show you a couple pieces of information. So first off, here is the Think Tank Urban Approach, right? So here it is, it's on Amazon. In fact, I'll go ahead and I'll put the link in here. These are not affiliate links, these are the full-blown links. Whoa, wow, that's like a crazy link, sorry. Now that I just did that, that's a search link. You know what? I will get you guys the links in a minute. I'm sorry. I'll put them underneath the video later. So if you're watching this afterwards, look in the info section underneath the video. So the Think Tank Urban Approach 15, it's $177.75 on Amazon. Like I said, love the bag. Just wish it was a little bit bigger. So in all my searching, I found this bag by Tenba. It's called the Tenba Axis, and I went with the 24L. So there's a 24L, 20L, and a 32L. But the 24L is a little bit bigger than the Urban Approach, all the way around. So here, let me switch back to the main screen. I'll hold them both up here really quick. All right, so we have the Urban Approach, which is loaded right now, and we have the Tenba. So slightly bigger all the way around, slightly taller, slightly wider, okay? So here are the things that I thought were, and I will tell you that the construction, the material quality on the Tenba, outstanding, just like Think Tank, right? So inside, you open it up, whoops, let's take that out. You know, easily configurable, just like any other bag. But here's one of the features that I thought was really cool. When this bag is zipped up, it's got two, in the Urban Approach, because of the amount of gear that I carry, am not able to leave a lens on a camera body. So I have two bodies in there plus the Olympus TG6, but I can't come up with a configuration where I'm able to have a lens on either of the camera bodies in order to get everything in. So one of the things that's really cool about this Tenba is on the top, there's a separate flap right here that I can open up and grab one body with a lens on it. Nice, right? It's right on the top. And if I'm, wearing the bag as a backpack, etc., I can slide it off one shoulder, sling it around, and there's another pocket here to grab a camera with a lens on it. Pretty sweet, okay? It has pockets for computers, all these gadget straps, everything. Seemed like awesome bag. When the bag came, the very first time I loaded it, I spent about an hour arranging, rearranging, doing all the padding, etc. And I walked away for a few minutes, came back and zipped it like that. So if you can see, I've got the zippers about 5 inches apart at the top, right? So there's the width of the bag, okay, at the bottom of the screen. There's where the zipper ends. I want you to notice the shoulder harnesses for the bag are attached to the lid. Yeah. So you saw, I just put my hands in between that zipper at the top with a 5-inch gap and pulled. So the very first time I picked the bag up, as I picked it up, it started to flip open and it was on a table, so no damage. I thought, wow, I'm gonna have to be really careful. Gonna have to pay attention to that. 2 days later, I was on my way here. It was right after I signed the lease on the studio. I had the bag filled, I had the bag on my shoulder. I slid the bag off my shoulder to go to put it in the car, and as I'm spinning it around with the car door open on the back seat, I apparently did not have the zipper closed all the way, and the weight from the cameras pulls the bag open, and all my gear goes tumbling across the back seat of my car. Nothing was damaged. So the crazy part of it is, like, all of your weight, everything that you stuff into this bag, all the weight is on the zipper. Even if they at least had like a latch, like just a cloth latch that you put there, so that when you close the bag up, you build the habit of you snap it together, that'd be awesome. But they don't. So if you don't go ahead and zip that thing all the way closed, it'll pull open. But even zipping it all the way closed, that means that all of my camera gear, all of it, is being secured just by a zipper. That's kind of scary. So, anybody want to buy Tenba bag? Cheap? Just saying. So, and by the way, the Tenba bag, obviously, as you saw, it's a little bit more expensive. So I was ultimately extremely disappointed. I thought about reaching out to Tenba, but it's not like they're going to redesign the bag just because Joe said so. For whatever reason, they seem to feel that it's a good design. Obviously, I certainly don't. So Linda, that was the story behind the Tenba bag, okay? All right, next question we had here is from Peter. Peter said, he has been told, those are usually the first bad words. Somebody told you because they saw it in a YouTube video, right? I know, sorry. When you use a speed light, you first adjust for the ambient light with the shutter speed, and then for the speed light with the aperture. He wants to know, do I agree with that? And then he goes on to pose the example. So if I'm using a speed light without high-speed sync and I want the background to be dark, could I theoretically and practically, I guess, use an ND filter instead of a faster shutter speed? So let's take the second part of his question first, all right? The second part of your question, Peter, is that yes, you could use ND filters. That is totally an option. That's how we did it back in the day when there was no high-speed sync and then all that kind of stuff, right? But I'm more concerned with what you were told, right? The idea of you have to do the ambient light first, and then and that's with your shutter speed, and then you do the speed light with that. No, that's BS. That's like major BS. Now, are there some situations where you would do that? Yeah, of course. But to make a statement that says, if you're using a speed light, this is what you do? No, that's absolutely wrong in that context. So if we're talking about doing the zombie thing, sorry guys, but if you want to overpower the sun, if that's the whole idea, then yes, you measure your ambient first, and then you bring the flash in second, okay? Even if you're using fill flash, essentially that's what you're doing, is you're going to meter your scene, get the exposure correct for your scene, and then you're going to add the flash in to match what you've got. So yeah, but to think of it the way that you've described it, Peter, I would have to say no, that's an absolutely bad idea. It's kind of like what we were talking about before in that first question about ETTR and ETTL. There's no statement like this that covers everything. So you got to be very, very cautious about kind of getting that mindset that this is the way that I have to do things. It simply depends on what you're trying to accomplish. And that's the part that I don't have that information in your question, right? Okay, next one here from Nick. He says, you mentioned famous photographers from time to time and he looks them up. Cool, hopefully a lot of you take the time to look them up. He says, I know this sounds like a school essay question, but how would you compare and contrast the work of George Hurrell and David Hume Kennerly? Both photographers that I've mentioned at different times. Kennerly especially, he is an early idol of mine. He goes on to say they're not entirely the same genre, which they're definitely not. But he says, I would say that perhaps Hurrell's work can be considered to be withstanding the test of time better. Do you think that is not a fair analysis, he asks. So the short answer, Nick, is I think that's a very unfair analysis. I don't think you can actually compare these two guys because they're two completely different worlds apart. And if we're talking about standing the test of time, Kennerly's work holds much more importance and relevance in the world and will continue to do so for decades and decades and decades to come, hundreds of years to come. Hurrell's, not so much. So just so you guys have a sense of who we're talking about here, George Hurrell and David Hume Kennerly. Let me switch the screen over here. George Hurrell, whoops, that's Kennerly. I want to start with Hurrell. Hurrell is best known, of course, for the old school portraits of all of the Hollywood stars. This stuff was done before the days of softboxes and high-speed sync and speed lights. This stuff was generally done with direct lighting, maybe a scrim in place, but it was literally the use, just like they did with movies, the use of many multiple lights carefully placed to create soft, even, flattering lighting, right? So certainly many of Hurrell's images there, you see him taking a picture of Julie Andrews, many of Hurrell's images are iconic. And iconic usually indicates, yes, going to stand the test of time because they are iconic, but they're portraits, right? And they are amazing. So I want to be really clear. I'm not trying to take anything away from George Hurrell, okay? But David Hume Kennerly is the only living photographer who has photographed every sitting U.S. president from JFK forward, right? That's a lot. JFK, Lyndon Johnson, I know I'm going to miss some. Richard Nixon, who did I miss in there? Oh, the first George Bush, also Jimmy Carter, the second George Bush, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, Donald Trump, so on. I probably missed one in there. He has won a Pulitzer Prize at the age of, I believe, 23 for his coverage of the war in Vietnam, where he essentially, by today's language, he embedded himself with troops. But I say by today's language because back then there was no embedding with troops. These guys that went to Vietnam were crazy enough to just go out in the rice paddies and tag along. And the military was not looking after them. The military was not supporting them. The military was not caring for them. They did this on their own. So I mean, I'll admit, Nick, I'm a little bit partial. The way you asked the question, so I'm using the words carefully. The way you asked the question, I think that Kennerly, ultimately, his work stands the test of time. And while Kennerly has some amazing portraits, it's a completely different style of portraiture for a completely different reason and documenting a completely different thing. My hope would be, and I'm not trying to be politically correct, my hope would be that history will have a great spot for both of these men because, both of them, their work, Reagan, yes, I forgot Reagan, Ken, sorry. Both of them, their work is incredible. And certainly, even though Hurrell was doing portraits in studio type settings, his work, along with Kennerly's, they both documented a period of time, okay, and documented it probably better than anyone else. So yeah, I mean they're both photographers that it's worth looking at their work, it's worth studying their work, and definitely, as far as I'm concerned, they are photographers who should be revered by all who come after them, and I mean that sincerely. So, all right, let's see my last early one, and then we'll get into the stuff that's here in the chat window. Okay, this one is from Mike. Quick question: the Godox holder, he can't remember the model number, but the one that can hold 2 of the 8200s. How is the modeling light? Is it very bright? The holder you're talking about, Mike, it's the ADB2. It's this one. Basically, you snap 2 AD200s onto the back. 2 sets of bulbs here, 2 modeling lights there, and no, it's not very bright. Not if you need it for focus assist and that kind of stuff, and to kind of get a sense of, what's your light placement. Yeah. If you are thinking, hey, could I use this as an LED light to shoot with? You're probably not going to want to do that. It's really not very bright at all in that regard. Okay. All right. So scrolling back to the beginning here. And I know we had some stuff come in. So let's see, John. Following my review on his shot a week ago, he ordered the Godox TT600 so he can add more light in the shots to get more depth. Cool. Let me know what you think of it there, John. Okay. Steve Wilking has a 2-part question here. If one was to attend a one-on-one session at your new studio, so that's my one-on-one personal workshops he's talking about there. What gear other than the camera would a person need to bring? Is it possible to have the sessions recorded in order to have notes? And then part 2 of his question, is it possible to create a detailed agenda for this session to maximize the one-on-one time? So let me switch over here real quick, John. I'll put the link, or Steve, sorry, I'll put the link in here so you guys can see it. So the answer basically is yes. When I do the full day one-on-one workshops, they are geared towards you, towards your needs and what you need to do. When you sign up for it and pick your date, there is a fairly detailed survey that you'll be asked to fill out that is going to give me a lot of information. We will generally have at least one follow-up phone call by phone afterwards to talk about what you need to do and what you want to get through. I always overplan. In fact, for those of you that are members of my Facebook group, if you, let me put the link in here for the Facebook group. If you check yesterday's live, yesterday's live check-in video, sorry. I read a set of comments that's in the Facebook group, so it's not like a testimonial. I didn't write it, someone else wrote it, but it's from a gentleman that traveled here from Portland, Oregon, so he crossed the country, come here last week, and did a one-on-one workshop. So I will let that speak for itself, but basically the planning aspect, Steve, I over-plan the day. 7 hours can go by quickly, so my goal is always to plan for more things than we could possibly do, because I find that helps us stay on track, helps us make sure that we're going to cover as much ground as possible. In terms of recording it, you know, if you have a recording device that you want to bring along, I have no problem with that. However, I will tell you this, everything that we do during the session, I have you essentially step back and take a wide angle shot of the setup and then do the shots, for example. And then step back, take a wide angle shot of the setup, then do the next shot, for example. The reason being, you're essentially creating kind of a workbook, a visual workbook of how the day went. But everybody learns a little bit differently in that regard. So some people, you know, want to stop and they take notes a lot. Other people I've had will actually record voice notes as the day goes on. You know, I've had people just kind of set up a little GoPro and record things. So yeah, I'm absolutely open to that. Whatever is going to allow you to walk out of that day and to be able to really reinforce the information, you know, that we've learned. But yeah, it's completely designed based upon what you're struggling with, what you need to do. I've done the full day workshops where it's all lighting and posing all day long. I've done them where it's like half a day of lighting and posing, and then the other half a day is business and portfolio reviews and marketing reviews and that type of stuff. So it's really a matter of what you need, you know, to be able to do. Okay? All right, next question here. Let me scroll back up to Steve's stuff, just so I can find my spot. And I see we got some good ones coming in here, guys, so keep them coming. From Al B, this question is about barn doors. He's never used them, but he was wondering if they changed the side of the source of light, changed the size of the source of the light, even maybe just a little, or do they just alter the spread and the direction? What do you use them for primarily? So understand that basically a barn door, you know, those things that kind of flip open and close, right? The barn doors are flags, right? They're ways to block the light. So if you take the barn doors and you narrow them down so you've got a little slit, that indeed is changing the shape of the light. Now, the problem is you're changing the shape of the light, but if you're going to put that light 10 feet away from something, the light's still going to spread, so it's not like you're going to have a little slit of light. If you want it to be a little slit of light, you've got to move that light with the barn doors really, really close down, very close to your subject, and then it will be a little slit of light. So really what they're doing is they're helping control the spread. Barn doors are great for making sure that if you have like a rim light behind you, that you have it kind of flagged off so that light is not going to flare into the camera lens. Or if you're trying to light a background and you want to be sure that the light is not going to hit your subject, or vice versa, if it's a rim and you don't want the light to hit your background, the barn door is good for giving you control. That's really what they are. They're just kind of another control device in that regard. But I wouldn't go to a barn door as my first choice for changing the size of my light. I would look for some other type of modifier. So you can, kinda, but that's not gonna be my first choice of tools for doing that, okay? All right, question here from German. Kind of a personal question. What is your secret to looking so young? Any tips for that? Maybe I should quit wedding photography. So, first of all, German, thank you so much, sincerely. Every time I look in the mirror, I don't feel like I look that young. But honestly, I think it's two things. I mean, there's no secret sauce, gang. What a lot of people don't know about me is that I'm one quarter Chinese. My mother was British. She was a World War II baby. Her father was from China. So I have a little bit of Asian descent in me. I think that helps a little bit with not looking quite my age. And honestly, it certainly hasn't been all about healthy living. And even now, I mean, my lunch today was a nice big cheesesteak with sauce and onions and French fries. But I think a lot of it is attitude. I have a 36-year-old son who has an incredible job in the pharmaceutical industry, 2 amazing grandchildren, an incredible wife, and I kind of joke with him, more like proclaim routinely, that my goal in life is to bypass him going in the other direction, meaning he's much more mature than I ever was and probably ever will be. I take great pride in the fact that I'm just determined to have fun. And someday that fun will end, but until then, I'm having fun. And if I can't have fun, I'm not doing it, period. So I think for me at least, that's a big part of it. I do what I enjoy. I work my butt off. Believe me, I am very proud of that fact. And I'm not asking for any sympathy, but I have fun doing it. It's a passion, so it's a drive to keep going, and I think that helps. So the wedding photography thing, I realized you were paying me a compliment plus a little bit of a joke, but I will say it's kind of one of those things. Wedding photography, folks. You've heard me joke many, many times. It's like, yeah, no way I'm dealing with weddings. I don't want to deal with a woman on the most insane day of her life, right? If you're going to do great wedding photography, that's a business where you have to be passionate about it. You have to love the environment, meaning the craziness that's happening that day. You have to love the meaning of it. You have to love the process, and you have to love the adrenaline that goes into being able to produce a great set of wedding images, right? So, I hear so many new photographers starting out. It's like, well, I don't really want to do weddings, but that seems to be where the money is. It's like, oh my God, please don't do weddings. That would be a really, really bad mistake for you and the couples that hire you. You have to really want to do weddings. So I just think, and you guys have heard me talk about the idea that I started as a newspaper photographer. Then I ran a portrait and wedding studio, and I did everything from portraits, weddings, little leagues, corporate headshots, you name it. I did all that kind of stuff. And then I started doing commercial product and advertising work and did a lot of food, and that morphed into some fashion work, and then that morphed into doing modeling portfolios. A part of it for me is the passion has always been photography and access to people. So that's been the constant in what I do. But the type of photography, as my interest changes, I chase it. And I have chased it because that's what keeps it exciting for me. That's what keeps it interesting. And I think all of that, honestly, is part of what just helps me feel young, in the process. If you've gone back and looked at a lot of my older videos, there was a time where I was about 70 pounds heavier than what I am now. I hit 40 and it's like somebody flipped a switch. All of a sudden my metabolism shut down and I just gained weight, and it was horrible. So losing that was a really big deal and really brought a lot of the life back for me. But even at this point, I'm not freakish about it. I just pay attention, but I stay very active, and it's working. So, but thank you for noticing. I appreciate it. Okay. All right. So next up here, where are we at? Scrolling on down, we got a lot of check-ins here. And let's see. So somebody asked a follow-up to the question we had about degrees and certificates. Having a degree or certificate, can a photographer charge more because of that? Not really, no. In today's world, I don't think you're gonna find too many clients that are overly impressed with the idea that you have a degree or certificate. Because like I said before, there's a lot of photographers that are, and look, let me be really clear. I talk about PPA all the time, right? Great organization. I strongly encourage you to look at this organization, if for nothing more than the amount of equipment insurance that you get for free as part of your membership. But I will tell you honestly, there are a lot of PPA master photographers and certified photographers whose work just bores the crap out of me. So, yeah, I mean, I don't imagine them being able to charge more because it says PPA master photographer after their name. So, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you're going to create the perceived value around your work based upon your work and your passion for your work, and most importantly, the experience and the value that you provide to your clients. That's what's going to allow you to charge more. Okay? All right. Moving on down. Here we go. Let's see. Pascal, hello from France. Just bought a Pen F. Is that not a cool camera? I'm totally seduced by the Olympus camera system. Such a full feature creative tool. Love it. Yeah. So, I mean, for those of you that don't know, the Pen F was my gas purchase. So I'm human. I give you all grief about gas, but we all get gas, right? The camera kind. Yeah, the Pen F is just, it's a really, really fun camera to work with. So yeah. Let's see here. David, quick question. Do you have any techniques or advice for clients who compulsively blink to flashes? If the toothpicks don't work, no, I'm kidding. Don't use toothpicks. Well, so there's a couple things, David. If I can sit and have a conversation with a person, a subject, and they're not blinking, and then I start taking pictures, and they're blinking, there's a couple things happening. One, that tells me, hands down, guaranteed, they're nervous. And this, by the way, this is assuming that I'm using flash, right? Because you use flash, okay, in your question. So remember, I'm having a conversation with them. They're not blinking erratically or rapidly. There's nothing unusual about their blinking pattern. But then I start taking pictures, and I'm catching blink after blink after blink after blink after blink. My first thought is they're nervous. My second thought is I suck. Yeah, it's my fault, not their fault, right? So if the person doesn't have a blinking issue, understand that you're only going to blink after the flash, not before the flash, not during the flash. The flash causes a blink. So if you're catching blinks, that means they were blinking as you pressed the button. Nobody made you press the button. You chose to press the button at that moment, which means you were not paying attention to their blink pattern. Now, some people have a faster blink pattern than others, and some people, when they're nervous, will blink a lot, which means that if you are not paying attention to their blink pattern, then you are going to get more blinks in your shots. But understand that the flash itself is the cause of the blink. But the blink is coming after the image is shot. So when you're recording a blink, that's on you. That's not the flash, right? So basically, you need to slow things down. You need to give them an opportunity to relax a little bit. If you think that they're just nervous, if you think that's the cause of it, I would actually not slow down so much, but take more pictures. Just knowing that they're horrible, just take pictures, and then take a little break and chat. Take a couple more pictures, take a little break and chat. And what you want to do is you want to kind of burn off some of that nervous energy that they've got going on. Definitely don't talk about it. Definitely don't make a big deal about it. Like, you don't want to be standing there, you know, like click, 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 and you look, it's like, oh crap, they blinked on everything. Or like, oh, you blinked on everything. Now you've basically just told your subject, you suck, and the pictures suck. So they've lost all confidence. And if they weren't nervous, they're 10 times more nervous. And if they weren't nervous, now they've lost all confidence in you, right? So yeah, but it's the flash that's not doing, it's not the flash that's causing the problem. It is, it's the timing that's causing it, okay? So David said, good Lord, that makes so much sense. Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's what it is. And trust me, David, you're not the first person to kind of have that question or think of it that way. I did when I was younger and ran into people blinking. I assumed it was the flash. You know, the flash causes a blink, but the picture's done, right? Picture's done. So it's me catching the blink. It's not the camera, right? So, all right, scrolling on down here. Let's see, getting past our ETTR and ETTL. Christopher Brown has a question here. He says, I'd like to see you cover creative shooting. Everyone always covers technical aspects of photography. To me, it gets old. Really? Me too. I agree. I really want to get creative juices flowing. Any ideas there? Well, I kind of try to, Christopher, but I'm trying to think of the way I want to answer this. So I would like to think, okay, that most of my videos, not all, you know, obviously if I'm talking about a camera, it's about a camera, duh. But I would like to think that most of my videos and my social media posts where I show behind the scenes of how I created things and, you know, used a 65-inch TV to create backgrounds for portraits and that kind of stuff. I would like to think that that is showing you kind of my creative process. Now, what I haven't done, which I think is kind of what you're asking for here, is I haven't done a video that's like, okay, step 1, do this. Step 2, do that. Step 3, do that. No. But here's why. I'm sure somebody could do that. Anybody could do that. I could do that, but it's different for everyone. And I'm not going to lie, like the ideas come from different places. People frequently ask me like, oh, you know, you're so creative. Where do you get all your ideas? And especially if I don't know the person and I really want to have some fun, like deadpan without missing a beat, I'll just tell them drugs. And they're like, really? Nuts. Like, no. But ideas come from different places. So, Christopher, I will take that under consideration in terms of how could I put together something that would be useful and beneficial, that would, you know, potentially be able to at least give you a framework to get the ball rolling. But I think it's very different for, you know, every person. So, but my social media posts, if you go back, especially even like on Instagram, all my swipe posts, I talk about the process. I show the behind the scenes, how we did it. All of my last frame videos are start to finish the shoot, how I did it, where the ideas came from, what the concept was. So check some of those out. Hopefully they will maybe kind of help a little bit. But I think I understand what you're looking for. I'm just not sure of the best way to do that to connect with the most people. So I don't want to dismiss it. I will definitely give it some thought. Okay. So let's see here. Sliding on down. From Gilbert. Gilbert says he loves to shoot NASCAR races, especially since he just purchased the Olympus EM1X. Is there a market for NASCAR photos? Sure. But, like, I don't think you're being realistic, Gilbert. So obviously there's a market for it, because I can pick up Sports Illustrated, I can pick up all kind of sports magazines, I can pick up the newspaper, I can go to Getty Images. There's NASCAR photos out the wazoo. I can go to NASCAR.com, NASCAR photos out the wazoo. There's already a lot of photographers shooting that stuff, and it sounds like you're kind of just getting started. Because, you know, here's the thing, like, so this is coming from the Olympus guy, let's be clear, right? The EM1X is awesome for auto racing. NASCAR, Formula One, all that stuff, you name it, right? Awesome. But there were professional photographers shooting autosports before the EM1X came out, right? So because of the way your question's worded, I'm getting the sense that you're fairly new, you know, to this. Just because you bought the EM1X doesn't suddenly make you a professional NASCAR shooter. Like, there's a market for anything, gang. If you have a foot fetish and you want to take pictures of your feet as art, find somebody that thinks feet are art and they'll buy it. Bingo. There's a market for it, right? So, you know, People ask me that question, and I'm sorry, Gilbert, for being a little tough here, but it's a broader statement. People ask questions like that, like it's what's going to be the easiest to make the money at. It's like, wow, if I take good, NASCAR shots because I like going to NASCAR, am I going to be able to sell them? Well, first of all, if you're like buying tickets to go to NASCAR, you're not going to get saleable images. Not to support yourself, not to make any real money, not to get credentials for Sports Illustrated or anything like that. No, because the photographers that are doing that, they have credentials, they're in pit row, they're down along the walls, they're wherever they need to be. And they've got the access. You get that access by building an amazing portfolio, but that's not something you do just because you bought a new camera. So obviously, I love the EM1X. It is an amazing camera because of the AI autofocus in it. It is just unbelievable when it comes to auto racing. That's also a big part of why Olympus currently sponsors the media room and the media setup at Daytona. So we've actually had a ton of photographers down there shooting NASCAR stuff at Daytona with the EM1X, and it's amazing. But yeah, there's a market for anything. You have to make sure that you're putting together great work. Just having the gear and just having a passion for the subject, unfortunately, doesn't get you there. So, if you want to shoot NASCAR, then you need to go start, and you reverse engineer it. It's actually really simple, guys. You reverse engineer it. You go and look for all the places where NASCAR images show up, and then you start working backwards. Where did they come from, et cetera. So there's a great comment here that I want to just grab as a part of this that just went up on top because it's important to know. Jimmy Hill, stock agencies won't accept images from ticketed events without the proof of a press pass. And that's right, they won't because of the legalities behind it, right? So, if you guys are just thinking, hey, I always go to these things, like for instance, here in Allentown, Pennsylvania, we have a minor league baseball team, the Iron Pigs. They're the AAA team for the Philadelphia Phillies. Great stadium. All seats are really close to the field. I could walk in there with my Olympus 300 millimeter, which is like a 600 millimeter full frame, and I could shoot the game from the seats and get as great access as what the guys in the press area are doing. But no media outlet's going to take those images from me if they're going to abide by ownership rights of the people in the pictures, which is the Iron Pigs, the ball players, et cetera. So, again, there's a right way and a wrong way to do that. So, Jimmy, it's a great point that you make, and thank you for adding that in there because it is really important, okay? All right, let's see, going back up here to, so for Michelle, I'm discovering I'm passionate about both modeling and photography. Okay. Not the first model in the world that's decided she wants to become a photographer. That's happened many times before. Currently, I just use my softbox studio lights. What would the difference be between a speed flash and then my softbox lights? Well, a speed light's a direct flash, so it's going to be very harsh light, Michelle. The softbox is going to give you very, very soft light. Generally, photographers will put the speed light in the softbox to diffuse it and get softer light, okay? All right, Chaz Maz, his question here. Can you say what will the difference be with a beauty dish, with and without a sock, have on the light and the shadows? So, beauty dish with and without a sock at the same distance. In other words, you're not moving it in between no sock and with sock. The sock is going to soften the shadows slightly. But it depends on what you're talking about with shadows, Chaz. So if you're going to put the beauty dish here, like on an angle this way, it's going to create harsh light right here. Really harsh light. Beauty dishes do not make beautiful light. That's the irony of the name. Beauty dishes really make really sucky, really harsh light unless you use them properly. It's not like a softbox where you just throw it on and everything gets soft. It's not how a beauty dish works, because a beauty dish, because of the wraparound, it forces very, very rapid light fall off on the subject, very rapid. So if you're putting a beauty dish, I never use a beauty dish out here unless my subject is looking at it. For me, this is Joe, when I use a beauty dish, Where the nose goes, the beauty dish is. That's it, done. No turns. So if the beauty dish is right here, I'm not having the person look like this, because that beauty dish is then going to give me a shadow right here, okay? So that being said, off center like this, even with a sock, you're still going to get a shadow. It just won't be as harsh, but it's going to be an unflattering shadow. If you're doing a beauty dish here, you're going to get very rapid light fall off, and you'll get a strong, maybe a little bit of a butterfly shadow depending on how high you have the beauty dish. If you put the sock on, the light fall off will be a little bit slower and a little bit more gradual. A little bit. Notice that word was in there several times. Okay, but subtle differences is what you're looking at. Not a huge difference. Okay. All right. JOJ. The question is, when you shoot natural light portraits, do you start with your best location and leave the worst to last, or do you start with your worst location and leave the best location to last? Well, it depends. I mean, I could think of like a whole bunch of different scenarios there. So first of all, the time is going to be involved, right? If you're doing like a sunset shoot, depending on what time you're starting, all that kind of stuff, you may not want to leave your best location to last because it may be too dark. You may lose your light. Yeah, you know, Jad, I'd love to know a little bit more about kind of what you're trying to think through there, because I mean, it's just going to vary with so many stuff. Maybe if I have a really nervous subject, I'll use my worst location first just to burn off the nerves. But then I also run the risk of, like, you know, are they going to ask to see the image, and then I'm going to have to show them something that looks like crap, you know. So I will say this, I think a big mistake that photographers make when they shoot on location is they try to cover too many locations in one shoot. Right? And all they wind up doing is shooting crap because they're not taking the time and really working a shot. Remember how important it is to work a shot. So, you know, for me, I would pick a location, or maybe two locations that are near each other, or the kind of location where, you know, you turn this way and you've got one location, you turn this way and you got another location, right? So it's really easy, really close. There's no stress, no pressure. But you start getting into too many locations, you spend more time walking and moving and setting up and tearing down and, you know, working out your exposure, and you're not creating pictures. So, let's see, Al B. Joe, is there a specific collapsible Octobox that you find as a more reliable system than others? Looking for recommendations for reliable product. He's using a Bones mount. So are you talking about, you know, when you're talking about an Octobox, you're looking for something that is really big or really small? I mean, you can see lately I've been using these Photics, which I really love. These are collapsible. They have a rod in the center. You pop the lock and it goes. I've been having great results with those. My understanding is that later this year, PhotoFlex is going to come out with a similar, you know, line to that, but God knows when that's going to happen. Yeah, the Photics one's reasonably priced, seem to be very, very well built. I've been having really good results with those. They come included with the baffle, diffuser, and the grid, which is nice. So, and they're Bones mount designed. So, okay. All right. Let's see. Kevin borrowed an AD200 Pro, and that's going to be your next purchase. Studio lights are still good, and Nissan lights work on the center pin. And for high-speed sync, the 200 and TT350 will you buy? All right, good man, good for you. Okay, it's a lot of different lights to work with, but if you're, you know, your goal is to kind of start migrating slowly towards the Godox, then yeah, that's I would say that's a good call. Okay, so let's see here. Mike Hardy, this is about the camera bag thing I was talking about before. He said if you zip it to where both zipper tabs are on one side or the other, the weight shouldn't be able to open the bag. Two things, Mike. You're absolutely correct. However, the problem is, right? So what he's saying, gang, which is, you know, it's a legit point. Instead of zipping it up to the top, he's saying take both the tabs and put them down here on the side, right? Because then, you know, even if I separate them a little bit and pull, it's a lot harder. Mind you, I can actually pull, yeah, so it finally stopped there, all right? But here's the problem with that, Mike, right? Number one, who does that as habit? right? Because you set the bag down, and you're gonna go to the top. That's just the natural thing to do. I mean, this is just, I'm sorry, look, I don't like trashing any company, but this design is horrible design, all right? It's poor engineering, and it's a bad user interface because most people are going to be sloppy and they're going to come close on that zipper. They're not going to remember it, like get it completely tight. And even if you do get it completely tight, what's the fail point? The fail point is the zipper. Over time, if that zipper wears out, or your gear drops off. So yeah, it's just, you know, again, overall construction, this is the first Temba bag I've ever had. Overall construction, material choices, quality, all that stuff, great. But they created a design and they engineered a setup that overlooks human nature, period. And yeah, that's, you know, there should be a fail-safe on there. All they need to do is have like a buckle strap that goes over the two. I would be completely fine with that. Just give me a buckle strap that's going to take the pressure off of that zipper at the top, and then makes all the sense in the world. But yeah, so you're not wrong. But I don't think that's the solution either, okay? So, all right. Let's see here. Jose, the question is, Joe, what advice can you give to beginning photographers to establish their prices? We talk about this a lot. Honestly, one of the first things I do is before you get to, you know, establishing your prices, take a class on Business 101. Take a class on Marketing 101. Seriously. But here's the simple methodology. And when I say simple, I mean it's the only way you're going to get to the point where you're going to create effective pricing, right? So you don't just look at it and say, well, you know, I think I can charge $200. I'll charge that, right? Whatever. Okay. So what you do is you start out and you say to yourself, realistically, how much money do I want to make in a year from photography, right? So I don't mean like say, oh, I want to make $5 million every year. Good luck with that, okay? So how much money do I want to make photography? Now you have a number, write that down. Then you say to yourself, how many weeks out of the year do I want to work? Are you going to work 52 weeks out of the year, or are you going to take 2 weeks vacation, okay? So now you're going to take that number that you wrote down, and you're going to divide it by the number of weeks that you want to work. That gives you the average number of earnings that you have to make per week. Then you're going to ask the question, how many hours do I want to work a week? 40, 50, 60, 80? Be honest with yourself and realistic with your answer. Now you divide that weekly number by that number. That gives you your hourly rate for billing. So that's step one. It's real simple. Now you know what your hourly rate is as a photographer. And right out of the box, you're going to turn around and say, I don't know if I can look somebody in the face and say that much money. Welcome to my world, and welcome to every photographer's world. But then here's the real challenge. Remember that if somebody says, hey, can you come and shoot a portrait for me at my office? And you're thinking, okay, it's only going to take me an hour to do that. No, it's not. It's going to take you time to pack your gear. It's going to take you time to drive there. That means gas, possibly tolls, wear and tear on your car. It's going to take you time to set up once you get there. It's going to take you time to tear down after you're done. Then drive home. Then unpack, put things away. Then you've got to edit, that's the culling, and send them proofs, post them online, whatever, potentially hosting fees for that. Then you've got to do whatever retouching you've chosen to include, et cetera, et cetera. So all of those things have to be factored in to the amount of time, hence the total price of what you're offering. So honestly, I mean, that's kind of at the 30,000 foot level, that's how you set your pricing. And that's how you're going to get pricing where you're not undercutting yourself or working for free, which is obviously kind of important, okay? Jean Lapalme, have I used the 42.5, 1.2 Noctricon, and how is it? No, why? See that? Why would I use that? So I'm not a gear guy. I use the Olympus 45 1.2 Pro. It is amazing. I love it. Done. Right. So, Eric, thank you so much, man, for the super chat. I really, really appreciate it. Okay. Yeah, John, I'm not the guy to ask gear questions to. You want to ask me about lighting gear, that kind of stuff, sure. But camera gear, that's not why I'm a photographer, man. The camera's a tool, right? It's a tool, right? I love my cameras. My Olympus cameras serve my needs better than any other brand on the market, but that's the point. I don't go experimenting, just don't. So, okay, never have. So believe me, it's not because I'm an Olympus ambassador or a visionary. No, I just never have, right? Not my thing. All right, let's see here. Diana, mommy and photographer. Okay, tips on taking photos of children aged 8 to 2 years old, or the lenses that would be better for this particular type of photography. So, Diana, first of all, let me educate you about something. I'm not going to give you a harsh response, but I'm going to give you an honest response. Please don't ask any photographer on the internet, you got any tips for taking pictures of kids? Because all you're going to get is a bunch of worthless crap that's going to spin you around in circles. You know why? Because I don't know what is your knowledge level, what is your experience level, what gear do you use? Are you shooting on location? Are you shooting in a studio? I don't know any of that stuff. And given the fact that you're asking me what lenses would be better, it says to me that you're just getting started. And that's cool. But understand that if you're going to use the internet to learn, number one, do that later. Go pick up that camera and take tons of really crappy pictures. And if you just bought your camera and you think, oh, I want to start making money, that's a whole other conversation, and I wish you luck, but we can't do that conversation on Talk Chat. Zoom lenses are the best for kids because they're the most versatile, right? You can zoom in and out, you can move faster with it. But Diana, I don't know what camera you have. I don't know what kind of budget you have. Nothing at all, okay? And see, right away, there's Michelle chiming in, don't tell them to say cheese. That stuff is not helpful. It's just not helpful. See, that's the point. You ask a broad-based question like that, you're going to get a bunch of just randomly useless stuff. And Michelle, I know you're trying to help, but that is not the answer. This question that Diana is asking, she's got much bigger fish to fry than telling a kid to say cheese. She just does. So, Diana, here's what I will do, because you may now think that I'm the world's biggest jerk because of the way that I answered your question, and that's not my goal. I'm really trying to kind of give you a wake-up call so that you don't waste a ton of time and a ton of money because you start taking action on a bunch of random people that you don't know and their opinions. And when I say that you don't know them, more importantly, you don't know what their background is, what their qualifications are to give you that advice. So Diana, what I will do, if you're really serious about this and would like some help, number one, join my Facebook group. I will post the link here in the chat window again. Then number two, post this same question in my Facebook group along with more background. What your experience level is, if you can share some work that you've done, what gear you already have, what are your goals, etc. The more information that you provide, then I can take my 40 plus years of experience and I can help you solve problems. But to ask open-ended questions like this, if you make this a habit, I guarantee you that you're just going to get a bunch of random crap that is just going to spin you around in circles and wind up costing you a lot of money. So, be really, really careful with that, please, okay? All right. Steve Wilking, sorry, I didn't say this when we were talking about the one-on-one workshops before. You bring your camera gear. I have Godox lighting here, which you're welcome to use, but if you have specific lighting that you want to use, you bring that along with you, Steve. And Steve, obviously, if you have any specific questions, reach out to me, either by email or reach out through Tog Knowledge, and I will gladly, help you answer that. Okay? All right. Let's see here. Sandy Souza, why not stream the one-on-ones live for a fee for people who can't, whoops. HDMI just went. Why not do it for people that can't attend? No. Because I would have to change my pricing structure, Sandy, and it's just too much work, to be honest. The one-on-ones, though, Sandy, I don't know where you're from, doesn't matter. I can do the one-on-one with you without you coming here. We use the same technology that you're seeing, Zoom technology. You set up, like if you shoot in your living room, Sandy, you set your stuff up in your living room. You need a laptop with a webcam, that's all you need. I will demo things here, then you will try it there, and I will watch you, I will give you help, I will share my screen with you. As I'm shooting, I tethered, you're able to see it on your screen, everything that I'm doing, everything. So we can do those same workshops via video. Super, super easy. You don't need any hardcore technology at all. You need a laptop or computer that's got a webcam near where you, so you need to be able to put it near where you shoot, and of course you need internet access. But yeah, to be able to do them, I would have to change the pricing structure dramatically. And then in order to do that, you know, if the price is one thing for a full day, but you know, then it's going to be like 2/3 if I can get somebody to, you know, check in from a remote location. Well, then what if I don't get somebody to check in from a remote location? Now I booked that workshop, I'm not going to cancel it. It's too much. I teach full time, but yeah, that kind of stuff is just spinning my wheels for no benefit. So yeah, but certainly you don't have to come here to do those workshops. You can do them from any. I've done them with guys in Australia, literally, and it worked great. So you know, totally an option. Okay, let's see. H&A Family Photos, Arnold is asking, what is the difference between the two modifiers behind me? Does one give you softer light than the other one? Only a little bit. The one is the one's in 80 centimeter, the other one's a 60 centimeter. So it's a little bit bigger, that's all. So the 80 will give me softer light depending on the placement, right? So again, go study that inverse square law, okay? Most people would just say, oh, well, the 80's bigger, it's softer. Depends on where you put it, guys. Like, so that's why you have to learn the inverse square law, okay? Let's see. Ryan Fisher, if you had one type of photography that you haven't done, what would it be? Ooh. One type of photography that I haven't done, what would it be? Probably wildlife. The challenge is, because I know there's a couple people going to call me out for that statement, so let me clarify something though. I'm not afraid to admit I'm totally a city boy. So yeah, but yeah, I think it'd be cool to go out and, you know, photograph wild animals and birds and that kind of stuff. One of my fellow Olympus visionaries, Mr. Scott Bourne, he's like one of the foremost bird photographers in the world. I am chomping at the bit for an opportunity to go out and shoot with him at some point, because I think it'd be really cool. So yeah, I think that's kind of where I would, you know, where I would head. Okay, and then Ryan, his follow-up: besides portrait, what is your favorite type of photography? Absolutely photojournalism. I mean, I make no secret of the fact, guys. I would walk away from this portrait crap in 2 seconds flat if it were easy enough to make money in photojournalism today. It's just not in the way that I liked it. I was very, very lucky to be a photojournalist in the late 70s, early 80s, when photojournalism was truly in its heyday. I was very, very lucky. I loved it. You know, as a photojournalist doing newspaper work back then, essentially you were walking into other people's lives for 10 or 15 minutes at a time, figuratively, right? But you were experiencing the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, hardly ever any middles, right? So it was an amazing education about people, about society, about psychology. It was just an amazing, you know, education. So yeah, that's probably it. It would be photojournalism. Okay. So let's see. Scroll down. Gosh, I'm running out of time here. Ryan, another one. Okay. How much of your career has been your personal manifestation and/or just hard work? Ryan, it's all hard work, man. I mean, you can have any idea, but it ain't gonna happen unless you bust your ass. I mean, it's just not. I mean, what I do now, when I started my YouTube videos, nobody knew who the hell I was, right? Except for some camera clubs in Pennsylvania. And, you know, that's about it. Nobody knew me. So, you know, you got to put in the work though. And keep in mind, when I started my YouTube, it wasn't that I was a new photographer that had been shooting for 5 years and said, hey, I want to, you know, travel the country and teach. I had a lot of experience to bring to the table, and that's why I had already put in a lifetime of work. But yeah, I mean, I think all of it's hard work. I'm a big believer of you can do anything you want in life as long as you're willing to bust your ass. But unfortunately, too many people think, yeah, I go, you know, buy all the gear and spend 6 months and I'm ready. Nah, it just kind of doesn't work that way. So, all right, let's see. Scrolling on down here, almost out of time. Germano, for beauty shots, for skin and makeup priority, is it better to use hard or soft light? Oh, definitely soft light. Hands down, soft light. Soft light, you know, and again, a beauty dish used properly will work as well, but soft light is totally going to make all the difference in the world. So, Flying Monkey, do I think the Yangwon 0200 will be cheaper than the Godox 8200? Probably in every way, shape, or form, meaning quality, etc. So, yeah, okay. Let's see here. Joe Newman, would it be possible to do a Talk Chat show and tell, what I mean is, show us and tell us, he goes on to say, I think viewers will get a better understanding if you show us things like light fall off, softbox versus no softbox. That would be expensive for me to do, Joe. Possible? Anything's possible, man. Expensive meaning I would have to have somebody here to work controls, and I would have to use different software and different technology to be able to do multiple cameras to do that. That's why I make videos. The videos are coming back, guys. Don't worry. I know, I've been saying that for a while. Everybody's just got to chill. Videos are coming back. They're not going anywhere. Joe's still doing tutorials. You know, I got lucky. Right? I got lucky. My hard work paid off, and Olympus noticed me, and I get to travel. I get to meet people and teach, and it's really set me off my schedule, like completely. When opportunities like that, guys, come along with the kind of stuff I'm doing, you take those opportunities and you run with them. But I promise you, as it says on my channel, as it says on my website, and as I've said all along, I'm going to teach, and I'm going to teach for free on YouTube. So it will keep coming. This is not what I consider my teaching, so don't worry. This is just me sharing knowledge to simple questions, okay? So there will be more, I promise you, Joe. All right, oh gosh, 7:32. Let's see, let's get just one or two more here. David, oh man, this is a pet peeve one. So, is it a bad habit to shoot a camera with one hand, but are there any portable handheld speedlight modifiers for softening light that you would recommend? So David, I know my friend Manny was here earlier, and well, actually, he doesn't do this with one hand. Sorry, it's that other guy that does it with one hand. Manny does it with two hands, but still. Shooting with one hand habitually is dumbass. Stupid. Period. Shooting with the camera out here, gang. Walking around with the camera out in front of you, like this, using a live view. Dumbass. That's not Joe's opinion. That is the opinion of every camera manufacturer and scientists. Stay tuned. You will learn why, okay? See if you can figure it out. But yeah, it's just a horrible, horrible, horrible idea, okay? Every now and then, are you gonna like hoist the camera up like this to get over a crowd, one hand, or get really, of course. There are always exceptions. Solve a problem. But as a habit, bad idea. Really, really bad idea, okay? All right, gang, listen, I am like way over time. So it is 7:33, so that means 186 minutes with camera in hand before next week, before you come back. And seriously, like every week, I love you, all of you. I mean it sincerely, for being here, for having conversations with me. I honestly think I have the greatest set of viewers and listeners that are respectful. We get like little to no BS in the chat. We get great questions, questions that really challenge every one of us and get us thinking. I sincerely, sincerely appreciate that. But please, 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 take pictures. Use that camera. Get out there and shoot and work on solving problems. You will become a much better photographer of your own accord than anything that I or any other YouTuber can do for you. So please, as always, gang, whatever you do, remember.
Thanks for watching another live episode of Talk Chat. Now, pick up that camera and shoot something, because your best shot is your next shot. So keep learning, keep thinking, and keep shooting. Adios.